God will work with you, but not for you. By Lao Russell. Chapter 3. What am I? Question. What am I? Answer. You are an individual expression of intelligence. You are an invisible entity centering a visible body, which is your instrument for expressing yourself. Your individuality is the sum total of every thought you have ever had since your beginning as a single cell of protoplasm, which desired to be a bigger and better cell. It is commonly believed that the visible body is the individual entity, instead of the invisible intelligence which centers and controls it. Therefore, it is imperative to fully understand the relationship between the two. Whatever your body is, you are the cause of it. Material bodies cannot even grow or live and die or decay of themselves alone. You cannot even lift your little finger without desire telegraphed to it by your intelligence through your brain along a nerve wire. Your body is but a carbon copy of your own dictation. It is the product of your own creation. Whatever there is in your body, your thinking has put it there. If you listen to a tape recording of your voice and find it interrupted by a cough or sneeze, you know that you put that cough or sneeze into it. People are seemingly totally unaware that emotions of sorrow, frustration, worry, anger, fear, unkindness, or any other inharmonious thought will as automatically be recorded in their bodies as the cough or sneeze is recorded on their tape recorder. That is why people often say when illness afflicts them, "How can this happen to me?" They never realize that somewhere at some time they, themselves, have either planted the seed for it by their own thinking or by the many causes outside of themselves in their environment from which no human can completely immunize himself. Your personality is what you cause it to be. You have complete control over that. Your body is what your limited control makes it become. But your environment very strongly affects your ability to completely control it. Your power of control is measured by your knowledge. You have probably never thought of that. Outside environment shares control with you in such ills as colds, malaria, typhus, and other contagions. But the so-called degenerative diseases such as cancer, stomach ulcers, tumors, and heart disease are completely under your control and therefore self-inflicted. Knowledge of their cause, however, will give you the power to cancel them by reversal of the process which created them. 2 complete chapters are devoted to this subject later. We even give names to our bodies with the belief that the body named Anna or John is the individual person. We do not give thought to the invisible soul, which is the source of our individuality. Individuality means separateness, or the difference in personalities. We see the difference in people only through the manifestations of their thoughts as they express them in action. For that reason, it is quite natural that we attribute the individuality to the body. All individuals have different desires. Their thoughts express their desires. The body automatically records the image of their desires. The individual who would think inventive thoughts differs from the individual who would be satisfied on an assembly line. The assembly line worker does not look like the inventor. His thoughts would create a different type. Each individual becomes what he thinks. No two people have ever thought the same combination of thoughts. That is why there can be no two individuals who are exactly alike. A man who loves the works of Shakespeare, Tennyson, Beethoven, Mozart, and Raphael has an entirely different individuality from one whose desires run to murder stories, detective stories, prize fights, or other sensuous pleasures. You cannot see the thoughts or desires of either of these two individuals, but you can observe their personalities. Every individual expresses his personality through everything he does, whether it is a visible or invisible action. A personality can be judged by his postures and gestures, by his actions alone and in public, his reaction when he wins or loses a game, his appreciation or lack of interest in cultural things, his generosity, friendliness, or selfishness, and a host of other visible evidences of his character. There are countless invisible evidences, however, such as the way he expresses himself in letters, how he answers the telephone or words a telegram. Even his handwriting gives strong evidence of his innate individuality. All these visible and invisible evidences are proof that no man can avoid revealing his thoughts to his fellow man. The individual whose desire is prize fighting or wrestling makes the type of body which tells the world what kind of individual he is. No one would mistake him for a poet or a typist. Likewise, the man who desires to be a runner will make his body into the lithe form of a runner. Very few people realize that their thoughts and desires are immediately stamped on their faces and bodies. A happy individual, who has a high sense of humor, attracts others to him. The corners of his mouth turn upward, and his eyes twinkle in friendliness. Such an individual makes many friends because he has friendly thoughts and desires. He attracts people by the happy individuality which he has stamped upon his body. Every portrait painter who studies the face he is painting can clearly see his sitter's emotional history. The sitter's whole life seems to gradually unfold before him. Very often his or her selfish or frustrated thoughts are so vividly stamped upon the face that the painter finds it necessary to drive such thoughts away by interjecting happy thoughts. When anyone applies for a position he creates either a pleasant or unpleasant impression at once. That impression is not given by his present thoughts, for one might assume a happy attitude to give a pleasant impression. The keen eye and intuition of the experienced personnel manager gathers a life impression at first glance, which may tell him to not employ this one or to employ that one. He intuitively knows a strong or weak character, one he could or could not trust, or one who has initiative to whom he could give responsibility, or one who would watch the clock with eagerness for closing time. Every dramatic school stresses the necessity for its students to actually think the thought of the characters they are impersonating, even when not speaking. The audience must see you think, they say. You must become your character. You must show fear, anger, or other emotions every second while acting them. Your very body gestures change with every emotion, just as your face changes. You can see by this illustration that the body is not the individual who acts through it. A good actor, who may be a very gentle individual, can impersonate a murderer by sending a different combination of thoughts through his body, to make his body manifest a different individuality from his own. Is it not clear to you, therefore, that your body is only a canvas upon which you are painting your own portrait? An artist can paint the portraits of many different individuals upon the same canvas, or an actor can make his body express many types of individuals by temporarily thinking another combination of thoughts. You can also transform yourself permanently into a higher type of individual by thinking other thoughts than you have been thinking. If you wish to transform your individuality into a greater one, begin thinking great thoughts, beautiful thoughts, powerful and friendly thoughts, and your personality will immediately reflect your changed thinking. Your face will have a different expression in every detail, as well as your whole bearing. Your very posture and gestures will mark you as a transformed being. You will even walk differently. A criminal does not walk the way a scholar walks, nor are his postures and gestures the same. The criminal shows fear in his walk if he is hunted, or he slinks and crouches, instead of walking erect as the man of noble character does. You can become what you want to become, and your very aura will tell the world what standard of intelligence the individual is whom your body impersonates. There are no limits which you cannot reach if your desires are great enough. Your being will always tell of your greatness and the standard of individual you are. A good example of this fact is a body of a piano. It cannot make a sound of itself, but when a great master musician expresses his thoughts through it, the world knows that a great individual intelligence controls that body. Conversely, a sensuous individual will extend his physical sensuousness through that same piano body, and the world will know that an entirely different type of individual controls it. Consider the effect of each individual upon the human race as a whole. One uplifts the whole world culturally, while the other drags it down. An inspired genius re-inspires others to great heights of spiritual ecstasy. He awakens the divinity in others and uplifts them to the realms of their spiritual natures, which makes them forget their bodies. The physically sensuous musician creates just the opposite effect. His jazz rhythms drag them to lower physical levels and awaken all of the physical desires of bodies. He manufactures his type of individuality. The more knowledge you acquire of God's plan of creation and His processes of creation, the more you will comprehend your power over your body. You cannot command that which you do not know. Every individual acts as he believes. If what he believes is not true, however, his actions are not right actions. He hurts himself instead of helping himself. His series of actions, however, constitute his individuality or personality. The greater your knowledge of what you are, the greater your conscious intelligence can build and control a body to manifest your individual intelligence. If you desire to become what is known as a great person, first ask yourself if your thinking is directed inwardly toward your soul self, or outwardly toward the objective universe through your senses. There are only two types of individuals in the world, however: those who think inwardly toward their spiritual selves, and those who think outwardly toward their physical senses. All people think both ways, but a Mozart or Leonardo type thinks inwardly most of the time, while the masses think outwardly most of the time. A Beethoven is a spiritual individual, whose sense of values lies in giving out the abundance of his self to the world, while a Napoleon is a physical individual whose sense of values lies in the taking of material possessions for personal aggrandizement. The strange thing about individuality is the misconception of its meaning to the average person. The great individual is one who gradually loses his individuality, as increased God-awareness in him makes him become universal. Therefore, the highest aim in life is to lose your individuality in order to attain universality. The greater the God-awareness in any man, the closer he is to complete mind oneness. The completed journey of life ends in the omnipotence and omniscience of man's universality with God.